Experiments with parasites found on plants indicate that even the lowest order of life is enabled to take advantage of natural law. This experiment was made by Dr. Jacques Loach, a member of the Rockefeller Institute. Quote, in order to obtain the material, potted rose bushes are brought into a room and they're placed in front of a closed window. If plants are allowed to dry out, the aphids, parasites, previously wingless, change to winged insects. After the metamorphosis, the animals leave the plants, fly to the window, and then creep upward on the glass. End quote. Now, it is evident that these tiny insects found that the plants on which they had been thriving were dead, and that they could therefore secure nothing more to eat or drink from this source. The only method by which they could save themselves from starvation was to grow temporary wings and fly, which they did. Experiments such as these indicate that omniscience, as well as omnipotence, is omnipresent, and that the tiniest living thing can take advantage of it in an emergency. Part 15 will tell you more about the law under which we live. It will explain that these laws operate to our advantage, that all conditions and experiences that come to us are for our benefit, that we gain strength in proportion to the effort expended, and that our happiness is best attained through a conscious cooperation with natural laws. Again, guys, welcome to Charles O'Neill, the Master Key System. This is chapter 15. Today, we are going to be talking about the power of the word, and we're going to understand what words actually are, why they are so powerful. The laws under which we live are designed solely for our advantage. These laws are immutable, and we cannot escape from their operation. Difficulties, inharmonies, and obstacles indicate that we are either refusing to give out what we no longer need, or refusing to accept what we require. Growth is attained through an exchange of the old for the new, of the good for the better. It is a conditional or reciprocal action. For each of us is a complete thought entity, and this completeness makes it possible for us to receive only as we give. Only as we give. We cannot obtain what we lack if we tenaciously cling to what we have. So there's a lot we can go into from those few passages. We all know that many times we prolong the inevitable, that area of life that we want to move into, because we're tenaciously, as Hanel has said, we're holding on to where we are. Learning to let go of where we are. The good for the better, the old for the new. I think many times as humans we find comfort in what we know, some security in what we know, even though it may not be where we want to be in terms of relationships, in terms of career. It's very scary, especially these days, for folks to hear the words "you're fired" or "laid off" and these sorts of things, because immediately we begin to retreat back to the old sense perception data of what has happened before. You know, we're watching the news and we're hearing these stories about down economies and people being laid off, so we immediately go into fight or flight. But in all actuality, what we have studied so far is a clear indication that we still are the captains of our own vessel. And even in difficult outward times, we still have the ability. This doesn't just work when times are good. Okay? This is a ideology, a method of living by which you can acquire these results irregardless of the season. That's important for us to know and to recall and to remember. The ability to appropriate what we require for our growth continually increases as we reach higher planes and broader visions, and the greater our abilities to know what we require, the more certain we shall be to discern its presence, to attract it, and to absorb it. Nothing may reach us except what is necessary for our growth. This is important because we're recording today, and actually, we're in a part of quarantine. This is COVID-19, and the first time this has ever happened in terms of, people being quarantined to their homes and things like that. So there's a lot of fear in the air, and a lot of people are afraid of the unknown. But as Hanel is saying here, nothing is going to reach you except for what is necessary for your growth. It's important that we understand this to be a fact. When we say things like everything works out for our good, which is a daily mantra of mine, and when we understand this to be true, it need not just be true when the outward circumstances are favorable. If it is true even in what seems to be unfavorable outward circumstances. In other words, it is very possible for us to become Peter when walking on the water to Jesus, did good for a while, but begin to look at external circumstances. If we're able to keep our thought, our minds at the foundational level of what we believe, which, let me recall, is that our thoughts are creative, and that our subconscious mind is tied to the universal mind, and that universal mind is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, knows all things, can create all things, is everywhere at the same time. We're tied into that. So our foundation is very, very strong. And we are living from the end, meaning we have seen our creation in our minds and in our spirits, and we have created positive habitual patterns of thought. Every day, we're revisiting our achievement, our desire, until it manifests. That's our foundation. So whether or not the stock market is up or down is not really any condition as it relates to our thoughts, or it should not be. Now, the problem comes where we obviously still live in the world, and we live in homes with other people many times, and we hear conversations, or we inadvertently hear news and these sorts of things, and it can kind of throw you mentally. And what you should do is retreat to this one particular thought. And this is what Hanel is saying. Nothing may reach us except what is necessarily for our growth. So if it is happening for our betterment. That's a really empowering way to approach life. Not from a pessimistic standpoint, but from optimistic. Not from a victimized standpoint, but from a victor standpoint. If it is occurring, this layoff, this illness in my body, or this discomfort, within a certain relationship, well, it is happening for a reason. It is happening for your betterment. The goal for us, of course, is to understand what it is we are to learn now so we can move to the next level. Like Hanel says, we move from higher planes to broader visions, and greater our abilities to know what we require, the more certain we shall be to discern its presence, to attract it. Difficulties and obstacles will continue to come until we absorb their wisdom. Basically what I just said. Until we absorb all wisdom. Just think of it as being in the first grade. And until you can count or add or whatever it is that gets you that ticket to the second grade, you're going to remain in the first grade. So if there are problems in your life that are cyclical or that you've seen come around before, then listen, you've not learned the lesson. Difficulties and obstacles will continue to come until we absorb their wisdom and gather from them the essentials for future growth. Everything is about growth. It is love which imparts vitality to thought and thus enables it to germinate. The law of attraction, or the law of love, for they are one and the same, will bring to it the necessary material for its growth and maturity. The first form which thought will find is language, or words. This determines the importance of words. They are the first manifestation of thought. They are the vessels in which thought is carried. That's a really eloquent way to think about this. I remember the first time I read this, and I never really thought of words being that way. But the way that we confer thought is through words. And you think of a little ship or a little car, some sort of airplane, and you just put a word in it and then toss it out and it goes to its destination. That's what we do every day, but we do it so carelessly sometimes. The vessels in which thought is carried are our words. They take hold of the ether, and by setting it in motion, reproduce the thought to others in form of sound. Thought may lead to action of any kind, but whatever the action is simply the thought attempting to express itself in visual form. It is evident, therefore, that if we wish desirable conditions, we can afford to entertain only desirable thoughts. This leads to the inevitable conclusion that if we wish to express abundance in our lives, through our careers, through our relationships, through our entrepreneurships, we can afford to think abundance only abundance. And as words are only thoughts taking form, we must be especially careful to use nothing but constructive and harmonious language, which when finally crystallized into objective forms, which will materialize, will prove to be our advantage. There is really sums up how we should be living day to day. If we understand the power of our thoughts, which we've been talking about from chapters 1 up until now, and if we understand the importance of those thoughts and habitually thinking positive thoughts, now it's equally as important to understand from an external standpoint, when we begin to speak, we need to speak positive words, frame our situations as optimistically as possible. Always see the brighter side. Why? Because the brighter side is where you want to be. You can see whatever you want to see. Choose to see the brighter side of your situation. This wonderful power of clothing thoughts in the form of words is what differentiates man from the rest of the animal kingdom. By the use of the written word, he has been enabled to look back over the centuries and see the stirring scenes by which he has come into his present inheritance. In other words, where you are in your life, if you're 21, 31, 41, 51, 81, it doesn't matter. You are where you are because of the decisions you made, and those decisions are a compilation of words that originated in a combination of thoughts. We've inherited, we've created it. And if we do not like where we are, we have but to change the thought, which will change the word, which will change the action, which in turn will change the environment and the outcome. This is the master key. Words are thoughts and are therefore an invisible and invincible power which will finally objectify themselves in the form that they are given. If your words come out negatively and angrily, they're going to crystallize into that arena. But conversely, if you speak peace and loving kindness, it is going to not only form into the substance similar, but it's going to attract more to you. In the physical world, there is a law of compensation. The definition: the appearance of a given amount of energy anywhere means that the disappearance of the same amount happens somewhere else. So, we find that we can get only what we give. If we pledge ourselves to a certain action, we must be prepared to assume the responsibility for the development of that action. The subconscious, as we've said before, subconscious mind cannot reason. It takes us at our word. We have asked for something, we are now to receive it. We have made our bed and we are now to lie in it. The die has been cast. The threads will carry out the pattern we have made. This again is why it's so important to watch your words. The subconscious does not have a discernment mechanism. It will receive what you send through or what you allow through. When I hear people say things like, I am broke, I am unattractive, I am not able to do a certain thing, it makes me shudder because they do not understand that, number one, they are a creator. Number two, that their words are powerful. And number three, that they are actually programming their subconscious mind to the end of that particular statement. I am broke. Subconscious mind says, okay, let's find some more examples of being broke. Let's attract some more situations that demonstrate this person is financially destitute. For this reason, insight must be exercised so that the thought which we entertain contains no mental, moral, or physical germ which we do not wish to objectify in our lives. This is what I just said. Be careful of what you say. You do not want to interject a physical, mental, or moral germ, as Hanel is saying here, onto yourself or onto anyone else. Your words are powerful. They are cast out into the ether, into the atmosphere, and they are going to be carried through by your subconscious mind. Whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, this is creation. So be careful of what you say. Insight is a faculty of the mind whereby we are enabled to examine facts and conditions at long range. Insight, long range. It's a kind of human telescope, if you will. It enables us to understand the difficulties as well as the possibilities in any undertaking. Insight is therefore absolutely essential for the development of any great achievement. But with it, we may enter, explore, and possess any mental field. Insight is a product of the world within and is developed in the silence, in concentration, in meditation. For your exercise this week, it is to concentrate on insight. Take your accustomed position and focus the thought on the fact that to have a knowledge of the creative power of thought does not mean to possess the art of thinking. Let the thought dwell on the fact that knowledge does not apply itself. This is really the reason why you seek out information, spiritual information on YouTube. You're probably listening to this lecture today. It's because you realize that thought does not apply itself. I've got to obtain additional information. I need to be able to understand how to improve or make an improvement within my life in a particular area. And I'm trying to find some good information. And once I find that information, I'm going to apply it. If you just receive the information and never did anything with it, the information doesn't do you any good. Hanel is saying here, let the thought dwell on the fact that knowledge does not apply itself. You have to do it. Our actions are not governed by knowledge, but by custom, precedent, and habit. The only way we can get ourselves to apply knowledge is by a determined conscious effort. Call to mind that the fact knowledge unused passes from the mind, that the value of the information is in the application of the principle. The application of the principle. Continue this line of thought until you gain sufficient insight to formulate a definite program for applying this principle to your particular problem, or like we call it here, a true higher self, your opportunity. Okay, guys, so let's summarize this week. There's a lot in this chapter that we can really talk about, but I want you to really hone in on the power of your thoughts and words. We've always, up until this point, we're talking about thoughts. Now we're particularly being particular in terms of how we externalize that thought, and obviously the vessels for doing so are our words, and our words are important, whether we are talking to ourselves, or we're talking about ourselves, or we're talking to others, or we're talking about others. It's equally as important to guard your words. It is better to just be silent than to say a non-constructive or a deconstructive word, because no words are going to be vacant. Everything is going to have its own end in terms of creation. Now, the second thing is that knowledge does not apply itself. When I began to seek information and hone in on my own spirituality, I was doing it for one reason. And that reason was I wanted to become a better person. I wanted to extend and really understand what my life was about. And so I began to seek. And in that seeking, I understood a number of things. Number one, that I don't have to become anything. I just simply have to accept who I am. Likewise with you. You simply have to accept the excellence of who you already are. and walk in that particular truth. It's about adjusting your glasses, changing your paradigm, seeing it from source's standpoint. Again, no longer the little me, but the big I. I'm connected to omnipotence, omnipresence, and I am omniscient. And I can create because I am a creator. That's why my thoughts are important. That's why my words are equally as important. The words are going to lead to action, and the actions are going to create some external environment. And I want to be pleased with that. So I must follow suit. A positive habitual thought pattern is what we want to develop. Now, as I was seeking information, I wasn't just seeking the information to obtain the information. I wasn't just seeking the information to have it. I want to apply it to my life so that my life can be, in my eyes, more productive, better, on a higher plane, affect more people positively. Whether it's in my entrepreneurship, whether it's in my marriage, whether it's in relationships I have with people socially, either way, I wanted people to leave my presence in a better mood, having said, hey, it's great talking to that guy, or I've helped them in some sort of way. So I'm assuming if you're listening to lectures like this, then you're on a similar path. You're seeking information. You're trying to figure out, how can I do this life thing better? I want to be better for me, for those around me. I want to feel better. Once I feel better, I believe that people around me will feel better. And I also want to communicate to them how I'm doing this so that we all can partake in this, because there's plenty to go around. Okay? So that's what I want you to take away this week. And again, adhere to your exercise. Get into the silence. Each week you should be continually going to the silence and continually understanding how to map out in detail that whatsoever thing that you see in your mind, your desired result, your achievement, your goal, whatever that thing is that you want. This week, Hanel is asking you to concentrate on insight and to really understand the power of your thoughts and to really get deep into that particular habit. Now, some key takeaways from this week. What do difficulties and obstacles indicate? This is important, especially in a time like today. What do difficulties and obstacles indicate? That they are necessary for our wisdom and spiritual growth. If something is coming, there's no accident. There's no accident. Everything works for a reason. All things work together. All things work together. So keep perspective on that and know that you have foundational power. Your foundational power comes from your connectivity as the big I to the universal mind, not the little me, the big I. So whether you're moving forward in a relationship, or whether you're changing careers, whether you're moving out of a career into an entrepreneurship, it's important to always know you have this great foundation and that you're tied into the universal mind. Now, how may difficulties be avoided? They can be avoided by a conscious understanding of and cooperation with natural laws. Natural laws. We talked about the law of compensation. So go back and listen to this again if you need to. There's a lot of stuff, going on in this particular chapter, but I want to thank you for joining me again. This is, getting really good. We only have about 7 lectures left to go before we're done with the Master Key System. Check out our descriptions below. We have a free giveaway for you. And as always, please subscribe to this channel because there's always new and empowering information coming out in true higher self. And listen, guys, have a great week. Do not cower to fear. Do not cower to fear. You are an empowered individual, and build on that. Be optimistic, not pessimistic. Continue with your positive habitual thinking, and I guarantee you that you will see the end that you desire. Have a great week.